This is the Landlord Survival Show. When people stop being nice and shit gets real. You're the landlord. We're here to help. This is a show for what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. We're here for you because we're stronger together.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Landlord Survival Show. This is your host, Steve Rosenberg, and I am the owner and co-founder of Empire Industries Property Management Company, located in Houston, Texas, as well as Dallas, Fort Worth as well. And just a little bit about us and our show. The reason we even started this show is because I'm an investor myself. I get to see what's going on in the investor realm as well as a property management company. And I just see that there's a big void of people out there that, helping other investors. I think there's a lot of people that are on the front end that help investors buy properties. I don't think there's many people that help them continually, whether to buy more and more and more, or help them, figure out different ideas to purchase, or even when they have challenges and how they fix those challenges. And so I created this show. It's on iTunes. My only request is that you share it out with other people. We also have the Landlord Survival Group on Facebook. It's a great group that's just investors talking about investors and challenges we all deal with on a daily basis. And then we have our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com. So it's interesting. I'm actually down here in Sydney, Australia, and I'm fortunate enough to have my good buddy Alex up in Houston, Texas. So we're talking kind of across the pond. Well, it's not even the pond down here. I don't even know what they call it across the Pacific. Alex, thanks for being with me today.
Hey, no problem at all, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Alex, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now, going on a couple of years, and you're pretty prominent in the investing industry. You've done a lot of stuff. Tell everyone kind of your background, who you work for, what you do, and kind of how you help investors.
Okay. My background is before I started getting into real estate, I actually was a doctor who was just seeing patients and looking for, how to invest and things like that. So I got into real estate to actually open up another practice, and I never left. Currently now, over the last 5 years or so, I got really busy, and I ended up taking a position as the COO of a hard money lending company, Investor Loan Source. So we basically help everybody out that needs short-term fix and flip type money, long-term money if you guys are renting or owner financing. We basically just help you out, try to make sure you're getting into good stuff.
So let's back up a second. I didn't know that you were a doctor. So this is interesting. Yeah. So tell me about that. Like as you know, I'm an airline pilot. So, I'm not going to say we're the same, but we're kind of the same. But we save lives, right? I mean, that's what we do. Anyways, tell me, like what, to go from being a doctor to doing what you're doing, did you have something in your life happen that like all of a sudden pushed you that direction, or was it just not fulfilling being a doctor, or what kind of made you go down that path?
What happened was, every year you choose your career paths and things like that. And I was really good at what I did, but I was really tired of seeing people not being treated and taken care of like the way I would want them to be treated, and really use all the things that you're supposed to learn as a physician and a doctor to look at things and break them down, and why is this happening? I wasn't seeing that. So I was like, I didn't feel like I signed up for this. I didn't feel like, I wasn't being, a scientist. I wasn't, using, deductive reasoning to like say, okay, this is what's wrong with somebody. So I was looking to say, you know what, maybe I can just run my own place. Maybe I can just do my, so I can treat my patients the way I want them to be treated. And I gave up a lot of family time. I gave up a lot of long weeks, weekends, long nights, things like that. I got into an opportunity to really learn how this business works. And at first, it's always a sting, because I was starting to leave medicine for this. And I was like, and I was looking around, and I was like, I see all these doctors, and I see all these engineers and all these professionals, and they're, their 50s and their 60s, and they're trying to get into real estate to get like a or retirement or stuff like that. You're like, you know what? At this point, at that time, I was in my early mid 30s, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm in the on where I need to be right now. So that's where I got into it. I really wanted to just get enough money to open up my own place, and I really liked the income that I was making. I really liked the time I had with my family, and I really liked working for me, and that's really made the change.
That's interesting because, I've always learned, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that, a lot of times something tragic is what causes such a big shift. Now, I know my brother was an attorney, and I know people that get into like the law field or get into maybe the medicine field, once they get into it and they go down that path, all of a sudden they start going, this isn't really what I want to do, but I'm already, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I'm down this road. I'm just going to do it. And then maybe something tragic happens or something that they have to do happens. And, I've always learned that, people don't do what they should do. They do what they have to do. Meaning like people don't do things that they do things until their back's up against the wall. And then they have to pivot and change once they go, I hit rock bottom. I've got to do something now. It's kind of like losing weight, right? People want to lose weight, but they don't until they're maybe diagnosed with diabetes or something. And then they go, now I have to lose weight. I have no choice. So, but it sounds like you didn't have anything like that happen, huh? You just kind of had a want?
I had, but the one thing that eventually triggered it, I was driving to Dallas for a hyperbarics convention, the hyperbaric chambers. And I remember pulling over. I thought I was having a heart attack. That's how stressed I was. So I pulled over and I was like, this is where I'm going to die. And I was just that stressed out about my patients and things like that. So that was my moment where I was like, I'm not going to be long for this world if I keep doing what I'm doing. And as I was searching for what to do, and I was like, I'm still just like you're saying, you go through all this. I was very, very medicine driven. I at the University of Pittsburgh, I had my degree in emergency medicine. I was a research assistant for the American Heart Association. I helped open the physician's assistant school as an undergrad. Then I finished my doctorate, and then I started treating patients. So I was very heavy want to do this, but then I was like, you know what, my health is suffering. I have to figure out, if I have 2 little girls and a wife, how am I going to figure out how to do this and be around? And that was my thing that happened to me.
So this is very interesting, and because there's as you're on the front end when people want to get involved in real estate, and you're talking to them how to get a loan, and many people go through these iterations in their mind of that self-doubt. Should I or shouldn't I? Can I or can't I? Or that negative self-talk creeps into our heads from the time we actually think of doing it, and then and I'm sure you probably had people telling you, dumb idea. Don't do it. You shouldn't do it. You're a doctor. Do it on the side. See if you like it first. It sounds like you didn't take any of that advice. It sounds like you took your own happiness and moved forward with that. Is that kind of what you did? Did you just say, I'm not listening to anyone, or did you not even tell anyone you were doing it?
No, it was a little bit of a mix, because you do hear it. I had people I went to school with, hey, just come back or reassociate or do something like this. And with the opportunity that was presented to me, I had to take a chance, because I already knew what was going to happen if I stayed with what I was doing. And a lot of people feel they feel stuck. They're like, well, I'll do this. I may do this. I don't think it's the right time. Oh, I missed the boat. All the doubts come up in your head. And all I can tell people is some of the easiest decisions that that you should make are the hardest ones to do. Because you know what you should do, but everything, is preventing you, trying to stop you from doing it. These things that you should be doing and want to do, especially like if you're going to start to invest in real estate, it's going to feel really scary. It's going to feel very hard. That's sometimes a good thing, because things that are scary and hard means that you're growing. If you're not growing, you feel very comfortable. If you're growing, you're going to feel very uncomfortable. And that's, it kind of lets you know, hey, you know what, you're probably on the right track, because if you're nice and comfortable, you're probably staying where you're at. And if you want to be more and do more than that, then you're going to feel uncomfortable. You have to be willing to be uncomfortable to succeed.
Well, even more so, what I've learned is you never stay the same. You're either growing or dying. Right. It's like a tree, right? Trees don't stay the same. And, our business coach tells us that if our goals don't make us uncomfortable and nauseous, our goals aren't high enough. We haven't set our goals. We're not living to the level that we can operate at. And it's that self-limiting talk. So let me ask you, when you made this decision, how did your family take this? Because a lot of investors, you come back from a seminar and you're charging up and you've got the books and you bought a $5,000 course and you run into to tell your wife, hey, guess what we're doing? I'm quitting my job as a doctor. I'm going to be happier as a real estate investor. I'm going down this path. And they're like, no, you're not. You're crazy. You just need to think this out. How did your family take this?
I was lucky enough to where I had a lot of support.
That's awesome.
When I explained why I was doing this and what opportunity I was taking to work and do this in real estate, I got a lot of support because everybody that knew me knew how serious I was about anything that I do. And I couldn't move forward with what I wanted to do with seeing patients anymore. They just, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we figure this out? There was a time I moved it, but we moved back in with our in-laws and we took a chance and we took a shot. Sometimes you got to go back a little bit to really move forward. And I think sometimes with people looking to be entrepreneurs or they're looking to be investors, something, they're afraid to step back. And sometimes the stepping back is a good thing. It's okay. It's what you need. It's what you need for your business. Real estate's a business. You're an entrepreneur. So you should be able to look at that business and say, what do I need to grow this? And that's where I was.
It's funny. It's funny you say that. I've got a very good friend of mine. He's an attorney and did basically what you did. He was a salesperson. He did the other way. He was a salesperson for some pharmaceutical company, or not, I wouldn't even say a pharmaceutical, very low level salesperson. And one day he went to court and he was on the jury of a big court case. And he was in his 30s. They just had a little baby. And he came home and told his wife, he said, I want to be a lawyer. And she backed him and said, okay. They sold their house. They moved back in with their parents, and everybody was like, what are you doing? You've got a job, you've got the career path of being a salesperson. And, lo and behold, now the guy's multi-millionaire attorney and just does it. And I said, do you ever think back if you didn't make that decision, how your life would be? And he said, you know what? He said, I'd probably be miserable, but I would have accepted it. And I would have been, I would have just dealt with it. But he said, I always would have known in the back of my mind that I had more to give and I didn't do it. And he said, that was the thing that always crept into my mind, was the fact that I knew, I don't care what anybody else told me, I knew that I could have done more and I chose to sit on the sidelines and not do more. And he said, I don't want to be that person. I never wanted to be that guy that said, what if? And it sounds like you did that too. You did the other way, which you're happier. And, I don't think people put a price tag enough on their personal happiness and their personal time. And, I've learned as business owners, which investors are, the one thing we give up all the time and we waste is our freedom of time. And I think that, we will, investor or landlords, there's a difference. Landlord does it all himself, and investor sits behind a desk and signs contracts. A landlord will run around town, go to Home Depot, go to meet the vendors and do this and do that. And they're so happy that they saved a couple $100 when they wasted 11 hours of their day and they got nothing accomplished, or they didn't even just have their free time with their family. And I think that's something that I think we all get into that habit sometimes of wanting to just get stuff done and not understanding leverage. Is that as a doctor, did you see that going into this industry? Any things that carried over that you said, you know what, I don't want to do that? Because you went from running yourself into the ground to saying, I don't want that. So you kind of came from a different angle.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I noticed about, everything that I did getting to even the point that I'm at today is one thing that you don't get back is time. Okay. So if I noticed that I could make, X amount of dollars doing one thing, and I can delegate out the other stuff, and I'm making far better profit, I'm still having that time, I'd rather have the time. It's like, you just can't. I'm with you on this. Okay, there's people out there that they'll get all these rental properties, and they're like, well, I want to buy these rental properties because they're like 5 minutes from my house. I only want to do that. Well, you're living in your inventory. Or, oh, well, I want to make sure I manage everything. Well, you're really going to be the guy that's going to go fix a toilet like at 12 at night? That I thought you wanted to be a real estate investor, not a property manager. There's people that do that. There's people that really know how to make sure that's functional and make sure that's cost efficient. So I'm with you on that. I'd rather have the time.
Yeah. And so going into the investor world, I think that's something that, investors really could learn a lot from, in the sense that, my experience as an investor, as well as owning a property management company, is that, a lot of investors, when it comes to money, people get very sensitive, and you get a lot of egos that come into place, and they don't like to talk about money. It's this unwritten rule. Maybe because when I was a kid, you didn't really talk about money with your parents. Now it's a little bit more open. But what I've learned is a lot of these investors, they'll get into this world, and they think that, you don't really talk about how much did you pay for that deal, or how much equity do you have, what interest rate, and they focus so much on that and kind of holding stuff in, that they don't open up, and they don't think, okay, if I was a business and I was just operating, and I was Southwest Airlines, and this is our stock price, and this is what we pay for, it'd be a much different mindset going into owning rental properties. And like you said, they would think of it like a business, and they would make sure that they are handling things correctly, from a business perspective, not from the emotional perspective. Right? I think that's the biggest challenge investors have these days, is the emotional tie and not treating it like an investment.
No, I agree. I mean, a lot of these times, I think, especially when the person's buying their first rental, their first couple, their maybe first 5, there's still a mindset on buying a house. This is my house. Okay. Not an investment. They like to, they remember buying their house, or they may not even bought their house yet, but they're buying these houses like they're buying their own houses, instead of looking at, okay, what's my appreciation in the area? What is my yield on this? If you're buying notes, if you're buying houses, whatever you're buying, what is my return, and how is this projecting me in the future on how I'm making money on this deal? And that's all that they should be really concerned about.
It's funny you say that. So last weekend I was speaking at a big event in Seattle, at a real estate expo. And what I talked about was owning properties out of state. And the biggest takeaway that people got from there, well, there were 2 takeaways. The first one was, and I explained to them that, listen, your challenge, just like you said, is that you live in a house and you own a rental property, and you think they're the same. And one is an emotional tie, the other one is a business. And a real estate property for investments is a mathematical equation. It needs to be tied to your goal, wherever your end goal is. And the rental property is just a strategy to get you to that goal, just a vehicle, just like stocks are, just like intellectual property. So I explained to them, I said, listen, if you had a commercial piece of property and it was a strip mall, would you think of it the same way you did as a house? And they said, no. And I go, why? Because you don't live in a house. Right. But when it comes to you owning the rental property, that is what you think is similar to yours. And you start putting your opinions, and you start doing those kind of things, which is the wrong way to do it. So the first takeaway that people got from my speech was that, it's an inanimate object. It is just a vehicle. And you know what? If it's not performing, very simply, you sell it, just like you would a stock. And just, my whole thing when I was up there was buying stuff out of state. So I was in Seattle, where the average price is about $587,000, I believe, was the average investment property. And that's a tear down. And so what I'm telling them is, look, a lot of people own properties only where they live. And so my rebuttal to them is, do you own stock? And they'll say, yeah. And I say, okay, do you just buy stock in your neighborhood? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what's the difference? And so that was the first takeaway. The other takeaway that they had was, my son, he's 15 years old now. When he was 14, he bought his first rental property. And so I was explaining to people that, look, the reason we're doing this, just like you said, Alex, you're being a doctor and you're doing all this stuff and you lose track of why you're doing something. And I said, the reason we're doing this in general, or me, is to pass down a legacy to our children. So, I taught my son at 14 years old, he bought his first rental property. And he came to me and said, Dad, I want to buy a rental property. And we went through all this stuff and he had to do his homework. And, what I tell people is that's kind of why we do this. We're doing this. We're not doing this for the money, right? You can be a doctor and make a ton of money, right? You're not doing it for the money. You're doing it for the lifestyle. You're doing it to have time with your family and then eventually you want to pass down what's in your head to your children and say, here, this is knowledge for you. And so, when my son did that and he wanted to buy that rental property, I was like, this is exactly why we do this, and so a lot of people came up to me and they were like, hey, how do I get my kid to buy a property? I'm like, you got to educate them. You can't just force them to do it. You can't force them to save the money. They have to understand through knowledge and education that your job, a lot of people, when they're investors, they're doing all the work, but they're being selfish because they're hoarding that information. They're not passing it down to their children. So, we're doing all this stuff. We're learning all this stuff, but we're not transferring it. We're not transferring the wealth or the knowledge of wealth. And so those are the two things I got, was not running like a business and how to transfer wealth to be a legacy. And I think we all, we get caught up in the heat of battle. And honestly, I'll to be clearly honest, is I wasn't planning on teaching my son how to buy rental properties. He just is around me so much and he hears me talking on the radio and shows and events and listening to podcasts all the time that he's listening to because he's in the car with me. It just transferred to him. And then we would talk about it. He started asking me questions and we started going through these, mental gymnastics of owning property. So it's not like I didn't have this big master plan, but it really opened my eyes to go, this is why we're doing this, is to pass this down to our children, not just to have 50 houses and say, I've got 50 properties. Do you ever think of anything like that, like with your kids?
Oh yeah. Everybody that's been with my family, I have one daughter, Francesca. She actually sets up little desks around the house and fields calls. She's 3. So, so both my girls, even now, we learn how to negotiate and we learn how to, how do you go through a conversation? I'm doing little things. They're 3 and 5 right now. So,
yeah, I get it.
How do you, there's little things, but I really want to make sure that not only they understand how, how this all works, but how does money work? And that's one thing I think is really lacking. A lot of people don't understand how money works, and you start getting a feel of it, especially if you went to school or something like that. You start getting a feel of it. As soon as you start getting closer to graduating, you're like, oh, this is I should have done this a different way, like especially loan wise if you had to take out loans. So I really want to make sure I have an institution of how money works. And because, of course we're in real estate, but there's great ways to make yields and stuff like that in so many ways. I really like real estate because I've never seen money grow that quickly in any other investment that I've ever seen. But I want to make sure that I instill that in my kids too.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about the company you work for. The owner of the company, great guy. I've known him for years and years and years. We keep crisscrossing paths, and he's kind of an icon here in Houston. Tell us a little bit about the company and what you do and kind of how you help investors.
Investor Loan Source, what we do is we're a hard money lender. And what we
and can you explain that to people, because a lot of people don't understand what that means.
Yeah, no problem. Hard money lending, no matter how anyone you go to, even if you say hard money lender, even a private money lender, most of both lend against what's called the hard asset. Okay, so that's where you get the term hard money. It's usually very easy to get the loan, but it's still called hard money because you lend against the hard asset, not like different types of red tapes that come up in the bank industry. So it's actually pretty easy to get a hard money loan for investment purposes. So you don't do we don't do anything owner occupied. So it's just for flipping or it's just for renting. Investor Loan Source actually has a unique program to where we can actually lend to people that are owner financing homes as well. So we can do fix and flips. Oh yeah. So far, and unless somebody comes out of the woodwork and I didn't know about, we are the only ones in the state of Texas that will lend to an owner finance. So we can lend to the investor and they owner finance out on a wrap. So we do that. Most hard money lenders and private money lenders, we'll close in 7 to 10 business days. It's usually for anybody, it's usually 3 days from clear to close from title and appraisal report in, on average at 7 to 10 days. We help you look at your property in the beginning, make sure that you're getting into a deal that that you're expecting to get into. We want our people to succeed. We want them to do it and then do it 10 more times, So
Sure.
we make sure that everybody is evaluated, you're getting into what you need, and you close quickly. We have everything online. I mean, you can literally go online, apply with everything that you need. You can get pre-approval letters. In the next coming days, you'll actually have a calculator that you can actually calculate all your evaluations on there, so you can see what your deal would look like on what you're projecting. Everything that you could be needing to be successful, we're making it automated, so you can do it from anywhere.
So do you, let me ask you this, your target client, do you take people from basically beginning to end, where people that say, I don't, you get a doctor, right? I'm sure you have a lot of doctor friends, and they say, man, I've heard this word real estate. I don't understand it, but I'd like to get into this. Do you take them and educate them on how to do it? Because obviously you're tied to their success. So it's not like you're just finding them a deal and walking away. You need them to be successful. So how do you do that?
So what I do is, when someone comes up to us and says, listen, I want to get in this, but I don't know how. We really just sit down and say, okay, well, here's the nuts and bolts of everything. You can look at, this is how you lend against ARV, and this is how you do with your repairs, and all that's fine. It's like the general equation types of things. You can teach anybody that, say, this is how much you should buy them for, this is what your return on investment would be. That's all just math. And I think, just like you said before, real estate investing is just math. That's all this is. If the numbers work, you buy that property for your investment. One thing that you can't teach is someone's business plan and end goal. They need to know that getting into this. And I tell people, don't feel embarrassed about what your goal is. Some people are like, well, it's like, what is it? What do you want to do? Do you not want to work anymore? Or do you not want to, how much do you need? Even if it's nuts, if you think like, oh, well, I want to make $14 million. Okay, let's work backwards. When do you want to make that? What do you need to do that? If you don't have that plan, I can show you what this is, but I can't help you implement what you want without a plan.
Absolutely. It's like, I'm very similar to what I tell people. I kind of ask them, first let's figure out why you're doing this. What does this represent to you? And tell me how your life looks when you retire. Like, what's the goal? Let's get that Disneyland. What is your Disneyland? And once I know what that is, then we can work it backwards, and working it backwards is what's called the strategy. So there's this, a lot of people say, my goal is to own property. That's not a goal, that's a strategy. A lot of people mix up definitions. The strategy is what gets you to the goal. And so first, it's like, if we just jump on the freeway and you just start driving and you say, I want to go to retirement, and I'm going to go, I don't know where that is. I don't know if we're going northbound, southbound, east or west. I have no idea. So we're not going to get the chances of us getting there are next nil to none. If you don't know where you're going, there's no way I can help you. And it's like, I'm sure you get this all the time, where I'll have somebody come up to me and ask me, hey, Steve, is this a good deal? They shove it in your face, Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what a good deal is for you. I don't want to give you something that's going to put you out of business because you don't have the funds to support a negative geared property. And so that's kind of what I tell people is, until I know until you know what is a good deal or bad deal, I definitely can't help you. And once you know, then I can be a great strategist to help you get there. And I'm on the property management wealth building side, but then there's people like Alex that can help you get the right deal structured. What entity is it going to sit into? What's your exit strategy? So how you're going to exit the deal, a 1031, roll it over, owner finance, all those things. And so, I think a lot of us, and I say this because I was one of these people initially, that we jump into real estate without any goals. We just say we're going to buy deals and we'll figure it out down the road. Well, I can tell you firsthand that was a huge mistake for me, because I bought a lot of bad, wrong properties because nobody ever sat down with me, just like you do, which is awesome for your company, to sit down there and say, why are you doing this? What are the goals? Because the properties I bought were a bunch of low income, high cash flow properties, although The low income part was right. The high cash flow never happened. But anyways, but you know, what happened is if somebody would have said, hey, Steve, you're an airline pilot. You don't need the cash flow. You should be buying for appreciation. I would have thought, that's good to know. No one ever told me that. The only people that told me they were good deals were the people that were selling me the deals. Yeah. So I thought, well, they know I must be a good deal. Let me buy more of them. And so, you know, it's so, you know, I think it's great that you guys do this, because I think it's definitely lacking in this industry, you know, where everybody, I don't want to say, you know, it's up to you, right? We're all big boys and girls, right? We need to do our own homework. We need to come in prepared. A lot of us don't do that. And I think they get taken advantage of because they don't do it. And I think it's on the buyer. It's their fault necessarily. But I think there's a lot of people preying on people that know they're not going to do their homework. And the big, fast, sexy thing is buying the deal. And, you know, look, you tell me, hey, this is a 30% cash on cash return. This is a fantastic deal. And I'm sitting there going, rock on, I'm going to buy it. What people don't think about is what happens on day two once you own the property? How do you now get the wealth out of it week after week, year after year? Nobody teaches you that part. They teach you how to buy it. They teach you how to get good prices. They teach you, you know, interest, but no one's actually educating investors downstream to say, look, this is how you're going to get the return to get you to Disneyland. And I think it's, unfortunately, I don't think many people out there are doing that. And I think it should be.
You know, I agree. I mean, a lot of things that we're implementing now is what we like to do is we try to figure out, okay, what are the things people keep asking us? So we're actually generating video content that'll be like on our Facebook page. You can go to our Facebook page on Investor Loan Source or ILS, www.ils.cash. We'll have content on there. We're always trying to generate something that's always out there so you can keep watching. So you can say, well, okay, how do I do that again? Or how do I calculate that again? So you can at least build that foundation. Because just like you said, what's a good deal for one person may not be a good deal for what you're trying to do. Because we're like, oh, that's horrible. You should never buy at until it's X 70% minus this, and you should never buy those. Well, okay, yeah, if you're doing this, but if you're doing like a straight appreciation graph, like there's people that can make good money buying off of MLS on a something that doesn't have a lot of equity, because they don't have to really put much into it. It's a newer house and you're going off a high appreciation neighborhood because your goal is to hold it 10, 20, 30 years from now. So there's always ways of making money. How would you like to make the kind of money that you need to make for this deal? Does that make sense for you on how you're buying it? And that's where we'd like to go in. So we like to try to keep we can't tell you what to do because we're not financial advisors, but we like to at least give you an idea of, hey, does this make sense for what you're trying to do?
I agree. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about are you guys just in Houston, or are you in other markets yet?
We're in all of Texas. And as we project into each quarter of this year, we're adding on states, and we will be in 5 more states by the end of May. So wow. I'd like to tell people, keep looking out for our website for states that we're adding. We are looking at to add, be in 24 states by the end of, probably about mid of next year.
So what are you seeing with the, you know, I would say the Texas economy pretty soon will be a national view. What are some things that you're seeing as far as trends and stuff? If I was an investor, that you would say, hey, you want to think about these things?
And again, like I'll start off with this. This is what my opinion is looking at data, you know, so this is how I feel. I'm sure that you can pick this apart or say it a different way or something like that. But what I'm seeing is that we are hitting like a stabilization of the market. And when you hit that stabilization, it starts kind of going to that downward trend.
Right.
Don't freak out. You know, when it hits stabilization and down, it just means you have to buy things differently. Okay. It just means that, you know, you're going to be into that scene again where you're buying probably multifamily for what you should be buying it for. And you're buying notes and you're buying rentals. And when it starts coming down towards the downward trend, you start picking up these flips again at these lower price points, and you start coming back up, and you're diversifying a lot of your investments. I see us more of in a stabilization market, especially in Texas. You can make arguments to where there is different companies moving in, there's different facilities for job growth and stuff like that. Texas is more stable than volatile like California would be, or like Jersey or something like that. So I don't see us having like a huge peak and valley. But as anybody that's been buying houses within the last probably 18 months to 2 years, they're noticing that it's very difficult to find the houses that they used to buy for the prices what they're used to buying. So it's becoming a more difficult market. People are buying houses for a lot more money than they used to right now.
Well, and I think what those are very, very good points. And I think, just kind of hitting on that, the market, again, like people, it never stays the same, right? Markets never stay the same. They say it normally goes in a 7-year cycle is what I've always learned. It goes up, it goes down, or sideways. And I think we're kind of seeing a bit of a sideways market with this. And I think what we're going to see is, probably with the elections, with the presidential elections starting to come, it's probably going to be pretty stable. I don't see much, drastic changes probably. But, again, what I've always learned is when it's either, it's a positive, negative. If it's no longer a buyer's market, it's now a seller's market. If it's not a seller's market, it's now a buyer's market. So, and what people don't think about, and again, this goes back to running like a business, is sometimes the area you're in, maybe you just can't do anything in that area. Maybe, instead of trying to improve it, maybe you just go to a different area, pick up your toys and go to another sandbox. Like I was in Seattle and some of the areas on the West Coast, the whole state of Oregon just implemented rent control for the whole state. So, investors are going, well, shoot, man, I can't, my costs are going up, but now I can't even charge rent, so that's affecting them. And so, at some point, especially Seattle's got a lot of challenges as well. And so a lot of investors, when I was there, were like, I'd rather take my toys and go play in Texas because it's stable. There's a huge influx of people coming in. Yeah, maybe the prices are up, but it's all relative. When you're talking $500,000-$600,000 for a teardown in Seattle, and you're paying $150 to $250, let's just say, for a rental property in Texas, they're going, that's a no-brainer. And you and I both know you can get deals much better than that, but I'm just saying on the surface. So I think it's just a matter of perspective, and it's a matter of, taking that tunnel vision and coming out into the 5,000 and 10,000 foot view and looking around and saying, there's a lot of other options here. And money doesn't evaporate, it flows. So it's just flowing from different areas, and now it's flowing into Texas. For the longest time, it wasn't flowing into Texas at all back in the early 2000s. Everything was going crazy with prices. Texas was just steady. Well, obviously, with every positive, there's a negative. With every up, there's a down. Texas didn't go up that much, so it didn't go down that much, and there's goods and bad things about that. There's pluses, but also if you were able to sell at the peak in Las Vegas or Los Angeles, take that money and go somewhere else, that's a smart thing. So I think you guys are definitely getting a great perspective from being in different states, and you're probably seeing maybe some areas that are really taking off and other areas that you're going, you know what, this has every indication of being a bubble or something like that. And it can be micro bubbles, like I said, in Seattle, they feel that there's a bubble coming because prices, the data there is showing prices are going up and rents are coming down. That's, they're starting to go, like, they were already negative geared to begin with. You're already very, basically losing money on high priced rentals, but now it's going the other way even more. Maybe time to sell, at some point it's not going to sustain itself. So I think that's interesting that you guys have the ability to see all that. Now, obviously we're both in Houston. What are you seeing in the Houston market?
The Houston market, it's been pretty stable. I've been noticing more and more people are buying off the MLS, and one of two things are happening. One, you're getting a bunch of agents that are, they're listing properties. They're distressed. They really don't know how to price them, and people are negotiating down. So one piece of advice, if you're in the Houston market and you're on HAR, don't just skip through and be like, well, they priced that too high and keep going. Make an offer. See what you can do. See what you can negotiate there. I'm seeing people are getting more and more into, I mean, like they have been the rentals, but they're also getting more and more into the VRBOs and the Airbnbs and things like that as a different way of strategizing holding real estate. And you're seeing more and more people come into that because you're seeing a lot more long-term lenders, investment lenders attuned to lending to it. In the past, it was somewhat difficult to get a long-term loan for Airbnbs and VRBOs because the long-term money didn't really quite understand it. You're starting to get a little more breadth of like, oh, okay, this makes sense, how much money people are pulling in. So I'm seeing that a little bit more go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think what you're seeing is you're seeing that market maturing. It's kind of coming up and they're going, okay, this is a valuable asset. And this asset is something that you're going, okay, I can loan on this because I'm guessing that, they probably needed a track record of it to show that it was sustainable and it wasn't just a one-off. And now they're seeing that. So now they're going, okay, we can start loaning on it. And now that's, it's kind of rising it to the top, So yeah, I agree. I think, we're looking at that as an option for managing the rental properties like that because you can't ignore it. Ignoring it is the death of a company and the death of, you as an investor and all those things. So you have to look at all these things as potential options. And, I think that's great that you guys are able to do that. And I think if I was an investor, I'd definitely be talking to you about that and just learning about it and saying, okay, what are my options? What's the return like? What are we looking at? What's the data? We recently licensed a software called Investimate. It's on our website. And basically you can go into our website and you can look for a property, and it's in about 16 markets, not just Houston, but it actually takes a property, you give it the parameters and it'll find that property. But not only that, it actually tells you what your projected cash flow will be based on data, historical data. Don't even ask me how many places it grabs data from, but it will tell you what your forecasted growth will be, what your cash flow will be, what your income and expenses will be. Then it goes in and it actually tells you based on a neighborhood, what percentage is working as white collar, what percentage is working as blue collar, how many renters, how many owners, how many people in that neighborhood can actually afford the rent that you're going to have it at. So it just takes all the things that you and I will used to create spreadsheets on, this software does, because it's seeing such a need to be able to go into a market and say, this is what I'm looking for. So again, it's using technology, but Airbnb is a disruptor basically because it's an app. And I think that's, I think we're going to start seeing more and more disruptors in the industry.
Oh, I agree.
So,
But always keep up with your legislation and things like that's changing. There are some places that are kind of pushing back, the hotel lobbies and things like that are pushing back on the Airbnb. So just make sure that you're still buying within a good range of what you're trying to project for holding the property. You don't want to get stuck with something that's like a $600,000 rental. Now you can't rent it and you're sunk.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You definitely need to think of those things. I have a friend who has they have a flat or apartment house, we don't call it, in New York, and they're trying to sell it and they can't sell it because it's softened up because there's a lot of Asian and Russian investors that have overbuilt in this area. And what's happening is it's in their HOA or their covenants that they cannot sell it under a certain price point because it'll bring the other prices down. So either you sell it at this point and above, or you can't sell it at all. So now this guy's like, I can't even sell my place because the market's softened and they won't even allow me to sell it. The sale won't go through. So like you said, these are the details, the devil's in the details, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that's in the details that if you're not paying attention, I know a lot of people, they buy these houses and they think it's going to be an Airbnb and then they find out HOA doesn't allow it. And,
right.
Good luck fighting that. I mean, then it's a matter of whose pockets are deeper. And do you really want to fight that fight, So yeah, so it's definitely something to think about. So as we wrap up, I appreciate your time, Alex, and thank you so much. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and learn more about your company and Tom and what, all the great things you guys are doing, how do they do that? And if you have any events coming up or you have anything that you guys are doing, feel free to let everyone know.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we're always happy to come on and talk with you. You guys are great. You are the one who can contact with us. The easiest way to get to us is go to the website first. And that's www.ils.cash. And the reason why I say that is everything we have our good faith estimate on there. You're going to have your loan calculators on there. You can get your pre-approval letters right there. You can apply online where it actually will, once you put your email in, it'll save all your data. So you don't have to keep reapplying. You have all that information and really how to calculate for what kind of products you want to do right there. From there, you can always call us at, on our phone number that's listed there. If you ever need to get, let's say you just don't feel that you're getting the answers that you need, you can always just reach out to me. People think it's nuts, it would be being the COO, but I'll give you my cell phone. It's 832-584-0986. You can call me, you can text me. I will help you personally. If you need to email me, my name is, it's Alex, ALAX, B as in boy, at ILS.cash. If I can't help you directly, and let's say I'm in a meeting or something, I'll always just get you to someone who can. So you can get your answers today, what you need, how you need it, and what it will cost so you can make the right choices for your business.
That's awesome. So I love talking to you, Alex. And I didn't even know you were a doctor. That's even more impressive, I got to say, man. So guys, thank you so much. Thank Tom for, allowing you to come on and talk about your business. I think you guys do a great product. You guys definitely help investors, which is great. I think education is the key. Again, this show, Landlord Survival Show. I got two shows. The Landlord Survival Show, that's what it's all about. It's all about helping investors, sharing it. So, if you're watching this or if you're listening to it on iTunes, please share it with other people. Again, we have the Facebook group, the Landlord Survival Group on Facebook. And then we have our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com. You can go on there. We'd love to talk to you and meet with you. If you want to come on the show, just shoot me an email. Love to have you on, hear your stories. Alex, thank you very much for your time, buddy. I appreciate it. And we will definitely have you back on again soon, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks for having it. Have a great day, man.
Bye-bye.
This has been the Landlord Survival Show. Join us next time for more of what the gurus don't tell you about owning rentals. And for even more, find us on Facebook.
Brought to you by Empire Industries Property Management. Built for investors, by investors. For more information about this show, visit our website, selfmanagemyproperty.com, home of the ultimate landlord survival handbook.